Okay, do you remember where we left off?
I do.
Great.
This is day 2, and I think I was already in high school, and telling some of the things that I remember being motivated by and my activities, which is pretty intense, much like the Albert boys, staying busy. Again, the church was a big center of my activities, and I was, especially the little church where I was directing the choirs. And but then school, it was music, football, and student government. And so I just had a great time in high school. Being busy, I think, is what made it good. I think my sophomore year, I was playing in the marching band and playing on the B team football. But I remember trying out for all county on trombone, and I thought I was pretty good because I could sight read anything and pretty much play it. But you had to learn a solo, and the solo was really hard, and you had to learn all your scales in every key. Which that was no problem. I could play those in 2 octaves, and that worked pretty good. But my solo must have been terrible because I didn't even place in the all-county band. But there were about 30 high schools that were, it was a big county. So, but I really must not have been near as good as I thought it was. But that was in high school. Cool thing happened to me in my junior year. The Birmingham Jefferson County Schools combined with the local newspaper, which is the Birmingham News Post Herald, sponsored a contest, not a contest, a tour each year, and each school could pick one person to go on this tour, and they pick a junior. So my junior year is during spring break, I was selected to go on the called the Citizenship Tour. Great tour. It's all paid for. I think we went to Washington, Philadelphia, and New York, and they treated us, put us in the nicest hotels, ate at the nicest restaurants, got to visit all the historical sites. We went to Lexington, Virginia. We went to got to see Washington Lee University, and I think the girls went to the girls' college. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a beautiful country. And went on up to Washington, D.C. and met with the congressional delegation of Alabama, and they fed us and gave us tours. And remember meeting J. Edgar Hoover for the first time. Went to the FBI. And of course in Philadelphia, went to Independence Hall. It was just a great tour. The coolest thing is when we got to New York is that at Central Park, I'd never ice skated before, so we got to ice skate at Central Park. And then they went to the Stork Club, which was the hot club in the 60s where all the movie actors and all the upper end people would eat. But this was some sponsor had paid for us to go to the Stork Club, which was really cool, and we thought we were hot stuff. I'm telling you, going in there to the to eat and all the pictures, and I don't remember if the food was good. I'm sure at that point anything was good, 17-year-old. But that was a highlight of my junior year. And it just so happened the year that we went, they sent a movie crew, and they made a movie for our tour and of our experiences. And I guess it's archived somewhere at the newspaper, but that was interesting. But the other interesting part about that is that they, from that tour, you become a member of a club, citizenship club, and they have them. You can sometimes alumni from the previous tours would come back, and you'd have meetings maybe twice a year. No big deal, but just kind of keep in touch with all the people that's on the tour. Anyway, I got elected president of the club, and that's because I took my ukulele on the tour with me, and we sang on the bus everywhere we went, and so it gave me a lot of spotlight that I normally would not get. And we had all kinds, the kids on the tour, all were very outstanding in their school, academically, athletically, and intellectually. It was a real interesting challenge for me to hang with them. But I had the advantage of the ukulele. So, and it was real fun to sing. Everybody would sing along. They knew all the little songs of the day, and they were pretty simple, so I could play them, and like Wherever All the Flowers Go On, and Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley, and people would learn to sing harmony with them. It was just a lot of fun. But anyway, as president of the club, that gave me a little bit of status. But anyway, at the end of your senior year, from the club, the superintendent of education for the Birmingham City Schools, the superintendent of education from the county schools, and I can't remember who else on the committee, maybe one of the congressional aides from local congressman, and I think maybe a representative from the newspaper was there. But anyway, you could apply for this job in Washington, D.C. Well, I applied for it and had really forgotten all about it. And at that point, I thought I had an appointment to West Point, and I thought, well, I was going to get in. You know, being naive, I didn't realize that you had to get into West Point, you had to take the SAT. I had taken the ACT and made probably above average, but not outstanding grade on it. But so I found out I've got to have that to get into West Point, and the last time they were given it was in May. Of course, at West Point you go in as a plebe. You go in the 1st of July, at the end of June. It's when you have to report. Well, I take the test in May, and found out that I didn't make a high enough score to get in. That was a real shocker. I did great in the math, but on the English, had less than 500, which is not acceptable. So here it was, I was graduating from high school, thought I had my plans in place. Had a backup plan. I had visited Samford University, and again, because I was high profile for high school, the president of Samford itself I'd done some music stuff, that's where he knew me from, and actually sent me a personal letter saying that he was hoping that I would come there. And I visited the music department one day. It was not where I was supposed to be. Everything was strictly classical. It was you either had to be a voice major or a piano major. They didn't have any. They may have had a brass ensemble or something going on, but at any rate, it was. I just didn't fit in to that scenario, so I was kind of lost what I was going to do. But when one door closed, another opened, kind of, you might say, and that's what happened to me. Is that I think it was a week before I graduated from high school, I get this call from the committee. They said, well, you've been selected to represent us in Washington. And that job, of course, I didn't have an idea what it was. It was called being aide to the congressman. It was not an internship, but the cool part about it is that you worked in the office and you just become like an office aide. But it had one specific job, and and I had to write an article for the Birmingham News, which is the largest newspaper in the state of Alabama. every week. Certainly not a journalist and had no idea, and wasn't even good in English. So, so I get there and they tell me this is one of your responsibilities. So what I did is the first thing is I went through the back years of people that had been there before, read all their articles, figured out how they wrote the articles, and I think one of the first articles I wrote was about the Armed Services Committee, which our Congressman Huddleston was the head of the Armed Services Committee, which is a very powerful committee in the House of Representatives. So so I did a lot of research on that and explained to what his job was and what he was doing. Of course, I went to the meetings, and so it went over pretty good. And of course, I had to have my picture made with the congressman at the committee meetings and stuff, and that was always a key. But I learned quickly that one of the congressman's aides, who was my boss, said, all right, always put the name of the congressman in the first paragraph. Make sure he's mentioned first. And make sure the article is flattering to him. So that was it. But I also ended up being very good at forging his signature. And so so I ended up signing a lot of his things and learned the people that how to write letters and to make people think that you favor their comments regardless of what position you actually held on it. Like, use words like, thank you for your letter, so-and-so. I think it has a lot of merit, and I will take all of your comments into consideration as I vote for blah, blah, blah. Never stating what position it is at all, but it was just a lot of, pardon the expression, BS about nothing. And so, but I got where I could write those letters, or at least, and so I'd sign them, and to his personal friends, instead of saying, dear Dr. So-and-so, he said, dear Bob, and she'd mark through Dr. So Bob, and then he would sign it just George. But if it was just a general letter, it would be dear Mr. Smith and George H. Huddleston. So it was just interesting to see how things worked, the way people were thinking or seeing him back home versus how things really worked in Washington. And it was basically, you know, they would negotiate, okay, like a congressman from Texas wanted a certain bill passed. So I'll vote for your bill over here if you'll vote for mine on that. And so, but they wouldn't publicize that. It would be, it would just be backdoor stuff. And that's how they got bills passed, is they would make sure they had the right number of votes before they even presented the bill. They knew whether it's going to pass or not. So that was a great experience, and I worked really hard. I would go in early and stay late, and I had a little social life, but I was really focused on doing a good job. And so they liked me, and while I was there, I don't know what his position was at Marion Military Institute, but I had set my scores there, and because my dad thought it was a great school because one of his friends, his son, had gone there and done really well. And they had a football team, a junior college football team, and that was sort of fascinating. And I had not had a spectacular senior year in football, but I still didn't get it out of my system. I thought I could still play. And bottom line is their rep came to the congressman's office and set up an appointment with me to talk to me about going to Marion. Well, I wasn't extremely interested at that time, but when you started talking about the football team, blah, I got a little more interested. He said, well, we can offer you this and this and this. And that even sounded better. So at the same time, the office there liked me so much, and I was making pretty good money for an 18-year-old just out of high school. Well, they said, well, we'll pay for you to go to, I can't remember if it was George Washington or America University there in Washington, and if you'll stay on staff with us. Because actually they were getting a lot of work done compared to if they were having to pay a college graduate to do the work I was doing. Of course that was flattering and thing, but I had this girlfriend in Alabama, and she was my girlfriend probably most of my senior year, and just pretty and sweet and a real good Christian girl, and and we'd write and didn't do much long distance calling because it was not cheap, but so all things put together, you know, I was kind of drawn back to Alabama and ended up going to Marion Military Institute. And you get there and it's football started in late August, mid to late August. And Marion, Alabama is right in the center of Alabama. And it's just farmland. They have the Marion Military Institute, and you have Judson College in this little town, and that's about it. It's about 30 miles from Selma, Alabama. And Selma was the bigger town. And about an hour from Tuscaloosa, University of Alabama. But anyway, I decided to go to give it a shot. So I go down there for practice. Well, they have barracks. They don't have dormitories. And the barracks were not air conditioned then. And you had bunk beds. And it was 100+ degrees. And we're doing 2-a-days. And it was miserable. But I was anxious to prove myself, so I worked really hard. But they didn't notice me very much. The only thing they noticed that I was fast. I was even faster then than high school, and maybe he's a punt returner or a kickoff returner, and so that's kind of was my role at that point. I thought I was still, I don't care how small I was, I thought I could run over these 250-pound guys, and didn't happen very often. but that was it. So I get down there, and of course I want to get involved into the church, and so I go to they don't have a college choir at that point. So I start going to the adult choir on Wednesday nights. Plus, you couldn't leave the campus because it's a military school unless you had a special pass during the things. But to go to church, they'd give you a special pass. So I'd go that, and of course, some of the Judson girls would be in the choir too, and that was okay. By the way, my girlfriend from high school, by Thanksgiving we were broken up. She went to another school and she met somebody else, and it broke my heart, but it was the way it's supposed to be. And so I was in what they call the military prep program. Also, they guaranteed me if I would go there 1 year, that I would be automatic to get into West Point. And so I was an engineering major, believe it or not, I was taking chemistry and advanced math. Did not get into, got through trigonometry, but did not get into calculus until the second year. But it was an advanced algebra and trig. And I did well. You know, I was on the honor roll, which is A's and B's, not all A's. Anyway, it was not the way where I would thought I would be, but I made the best of it, and the director of the church choir was also head of the choral music program, vocal music program at Judson College. So and so I asked her, would you teach me voice? Got permission to go take voice at Judson College, and I guess I was the first cadet to ever go to the girls' college, and which they do have a co-op program now. But that was again, it was maybe I just wanted to be over there to hang out with the girls, or it may have been about really learning music, but it was fun. So I got through the freshman year, and during the freshman year, last part of the second semester of my freshman year, the course director did not want to do the evening service at the Baptist church. Said, why don't you just do it? And they had and put together a youth choir. The youth choir was doing so well. The youth choir became a college choir because the really good singers and musicians at the girls' college, and we, of course, if the guys knew they were going to get off campus to go hang out with the girls from Judson, they'd come to rehearsal too. And so I started doing rehearsals. That was my last part of the year. And I remember I met this girl that used to stay after and help put the music up, and she was kind of like the librarian. I was very organized then, much more than I am now probably, but even when I organized the choir, I had, okay, this is the president, this is the secretary, this is going to take the role. We had librarians that put out the music, picked up the music. The rehearsals had to be organized because they were very short. And we had to perform at Sunday night. So you rehearse about 5 or 6 songs and perform one and get ready for the next week, the hard stuff. So this really sweet girl from Dothan, Alabama used to stay out and help me. But I remember when she went home for Christmas, or she sent me a Christmas card. And I remember getting it when I was home for Christmas vacation. And so my mother asked me, well, who's this girl? Who's this from? I said, oh, she's a sweet girl from South Alabama. She used to help with the church choir, and is a librarian. So I said, I don't know what made me say that. I said, yeah, she's really nice. That's the kind of girl I'd like to marry. And didn't think anything about it. Get back from college, and she's engaged. So, but we still hung out because her boyfriend was at the University of Georgia, and just happened to be the quarterback for the University of Georgia. Anyway, we corresponded a little bit during the summer after that freshman year. I came back to Birmingham and worked in building supply, hardware store, delivering corrugated tin, which is extremely heavy, and unloading freight cars full of whether it was concrete mix or one of the hardest things was carpet and heavy stuff, but it was getting me in shape for football, so it was okay. I'm gonna kind of skip through that because bottom line of sophomore year is that after Alice had gone home for summer, she came back in the fall and she was unengaged. And so we started hanging out a little bit more. I think by the spring semester we were actually dating. We were kind of boyfriend girlfriend at that point. And she later told me, she said, why don't you break up with your boyfriend he was Mr. All-American, and eventually I think did make All-American, or at least all SEC, as a football player, and he became a lawyer and very successful. Marla looked him up, I think last year or sometime recently, or got a letter and Googled him, and he had a very successful career as an attorney in Atlanta and as a part of the alumni of the University of Georgia and all this stuff, and he's nice looking and all that stuff. So she gave me all that stuff to read, and she said, how do you feel about that? I said, no big deal. She chose me. So that's when that was an important part of my life. Is maybe I was there to meet the right person I was going to marry. After I finished eventually I became the music director at Siloam Baptist Church in Marion, because the course director, she, first of all, didn't pay that well, but second, she was wanting time off. So I became their full-time director, directing the adult choir and the college choir, and started some children's choirs as well during the summer. So what happened is that, again, I was pretty arrogant, especially at 18 to 20, maybe 18 to 30. But anyway, the vice president of the college was in my choir. The wife of the president of the college was in my choir. The head of the organist keyboard department at Judson was my organist and musician. And and I was doing the rehearsals, and I was telling all these people how they needed to do it. And I was doing my own arrangements and not necessarily just using printed music, but I was just rearranging them and telling them how to do it, and then teaching them. So, I didn't lack any confidence, but if I'd had any sense, I would not have been so arrogant. I was talking to all these people with PhDs and masters in music and stuff. And eventually one of those choir members became the president of Mercer University in Atlanta, and they have several campuses in the state of Georgia. But anyway, it was kind of like meant to be. And music became much more important than football, because I'd had my freshman year, I hurt my knee. I was out for a while. I broke a finger. I was out for that reason. And coming back in my sophomore year, 2 weeks before I was supposed to report, I sliced my hand, and we thought we'd gotten a ligament, but it didn't. It was an accident in the warehouse. But it's a really bad cut, and I could not handle the ball. Well, they were bringing me back to be the punt returner, kickoff returner, wide receiver, whatever. But I had to handle the ball. So that put me another month behind in football. So again, I guess the point I want to make to my children, my grandchildren, is that what you think you're going to be, or what you think you're going to do, may not turn out. Maybe even what your backup plan is going to be. But, as I look back, you can see all these little threads that are weird. They don't seem to be connected at all, but they are connected in hindsight. The people that you meet, the things that you do, and the things that you don't do. So, anyway, after graduating at MI, and again, I got lots of attention. I forgot what the award was, the President's Award medal. I got that for something, for being, for just being a good all-around guy, I guess, or doing my job. The one thing that at Marion, everything is run like the military. And even from your first day thing, you are mentored by other cadets, when you're just learning how to march, how to do flanks, how to do steps, anything, to how to handle your weapon, how to do weapon drill, all those things. It's you have some supervisors that are in the military, but basically it's done by your cadets, and your cadets by your rank. So if you do well, for instance, you start off as a private, then you get up, you're doing really good, you get promoted corporal to sergeant, and maybe master sergeant, and eventually, if you get really good, you become an officer, like second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major, light colonel, and colonel. Colonel was the head of the brigade, but he was a student just like the rest of us, and he's usually a sophomore in college. They would be in charge of all of it. But we had to formations in the morning at 6:30, and inspections as well as at every formation. Inspect your shoes and your uniform, or your buckles are shined, and all that stuff. You could even get a gig for long hair if it wasn't cut just properly. So you got demerits. If you got demerits, you got the bull rink, which was a place where you marched around in circles with a big backpack on your back. So it was a good motivation to do your stuff. And so the interesting part about that is that by my sophomore year, my second year at Marion, they had selected me to be a company commander. There was not a lot of just 2-year guys got to be company commanders. Usually you had to go to the prep school and then for 2 years, and college 2 years, and you might get up to company commander. But the president liked me because of the music. His son and I started a little barbershop quartet, and we sang around, and as much as we could get off the campus, and we had a lot of fun. He became my best friend. So again, that company commander. But as a company commander, I think I had about 60 guys, and they were all high school. And I was responsible for them. I was responsible for making sure they did curfew, they were up in formation, that they would, we also had to, it was competitive according to the grades, to the intramural sports, and marching. Well, and they score that up. But anyway, you have to inspect their rooms, make sure their beds are made up into the right degree, their towels are folded correctly, their closets are perfect, no dust, even on the door sills, stuff like that. And it was not unusual for the school itself to conduct inspections, and they would give points to each company. Well, even though it was just a high school company, we won out of over the college companies too, and there were probably 4 high school and 4 college companies. But my little guys won the overall best military. I forgot what they call it, but anyway, we beat them in. We had more intramural sports. Our grades were better. Our inspections were good. But I had 2, in addition to me being over all of it, I had 2 great lieutenants. I can't take the credit for it. One of them happened to be the head of the White Knights, which was our famous drill team, rifle drill team that performed in Washington at Mardi Gras, and they were just amazing. You can't imagine how good they were. They were throwing rifles around, and they looked good. They had chrome helmets and stuff that were they were sharp. They were really sharp, very precise. They worked really hard. But anyway, one of my lieutenants was that. That's why we were winning all the marching contests and stuff, because he made them be precise. Second thing, my other guy that helped me was Bob Caraway, who is Dr. Caraway now, and he was known for Caraway Methodist Hospital in Birmingham, which became a big hospital just outside of Birmingham in Bessemer, Caraway Hospital. I think it's a different name. But anyway, that was his family, and he followed in the footprints of his grandfather and his father. But he was really bright and very respected leader. So that's what we did. And I'm telling you this story mainly because that regiment and supervising those guys, it really helped me to be a better parent. I didn't know what I was going to face in the next 10 years, that I would be left with 3 kids to raise. But I think that discipline and organization helped me do it. And I tried to get the kids to do that. They weren't so good at following that, but at least I did my part. Like, I would wash the clothes and fold them and put them on the stairs. All they had to do was take them upstairs and put them in the drawers, and it'd be ready for the next week. But I won't go into that's a whole new chapter. Get to the University of Alabama, and I take a church job at South Islands Baptist Church. Needed a choir director and youth director, and so that helped pay for the 65 Fairlane I had bought the year before, or during that summer. And it's a good little church, and I was still changed my major from engineering I'd done to fine arts or to social science, and I was able to take several music courses as an electives, which I took as many as I could. But also I was taking psychology, sociology, economics, and history. That was pretty much made up my core curriculum, and I enjoyed it and did okay, pretty well. Not all honor rolls, but I was working a lot, and I also took a job at J.C. Penney's where I sold men's clothing, and that's where I learned my fashion sense. Joke. That but it was, extra income. So my junior year, and I was also in advanced ROTC, and that was became a big time filler for me, and I took a leadership role in that. And after my junior year, I had to go to Fort Bragg and do basic camp. I was deferred for the Army. I mean, by that, I didn't get drafted. As long as I stayed in ROTC, they let me stay in college. But when I graduated, I'd have to go into military full-time. So the summer before your senior year, you have to go to basic camp. And they just treat you like you're going through as a private, but then they gave you more advanced stuff in training, knowing that you're going to be a future officer. And I didn't enjoy it at Fort Bragg. It was awful. It was hot, and it was almost like that first year at Merritt, or worse, because they didn't let you have any rest. It seemed like you're going like 24/7. But I made through it and finished in the top 10%, which means that I was qualified to become regular Army. Same thing I would have gotten if I'd gone to West Point. Same commission. But anyway, I got to my senior year, and I graduated. But in my senior year, the cool thing, Alice decided she wanted to transfer to the University of Alabama. And we were still dating at that point, although mostly from a distance. But when she came to the University of Alabama, she was in my choir at church and helped me there. And we had quite a little ministry going on campus. I'd run a carpool to the campus to the church about 3 times every Sunday morning, and picked up one of my pickup spots was at Bear Bryant Dorm, which is, we had 2 or 3 of the guys that were on the football team that had become Christians, and they really appreciated the fact someone would wake them up on Sunday morning and get them to church, and we had our own little routine. I've been a routine guy for a long time, and after church, we'd usually go get a bunch of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And my brother was there at the time, and we lived in a little trailer that was 8 feet wide and 32 feet long. My bedroom was 8 by 10, maybe. It was very, very small. And it was like you had to walk down the hall, and you walk through. My bed was on one side, the single bed, and I had a little closet up on the other side. But it didn't matter, you know. It was food, clothing, shelter. We were getting by fine. And but after graduating from, or almost graduated, right before I graduated from high school, and Alice and I were really close at that point, and I kind of knew I was going to marry her. She was the right person for me at that point. We just hadn't worked out all the details, but I think it was maybe April '67, and we were discussing and we were going to marry, and she said, well, if you don't marry me by the time if I turn 22 and we're not married, I'm not guaranteeing you anything. I mean, I don't know where I'm going to be. I'm going to go to med school or do something, but I'm not going to just sit around and wait for you to get out of the Army to come to get married. And I knew at least a half dozen guys that would marry her immediately, because she was just that kind of person that, you know, you knew she was going to be a great wife and mother, and she was smart too. So anyway, that sounded like I better get my act together. So we got engaged May 14th, 1967, got married June 30th, 1967. So we gave ourselves a long time to plan the wedding, get all this stuff together. But it worked. It worked great. After I got married, we loaded up my little car, my '65 Freightliner. I think we had everything we owned in that car. Literally, we had our dishes, our linens, our towels, our clothes. I think we maybe had a little big one of these little bitty barbecue grills. Yeah, the car was packed from top to bottom, but that's everything we owned. So we headed out to San Antonio. Cool story is that when we at a honeymoon, we'd gone down to I think the city. It wasn't popular. It's Destin. It was before Destin was anything. But I'd seen this brochure of Hospitality Inn in Destin, and it looked really nice, and it was on the beach. So it was only like less than an hour from Dothan. So that's where we spent our first honeymoon night, and it was fine because it was the two of us, and it didn't matter. But it was not the nicest hotel in the world. Next day we got up, or maybe we were there for 2 nights. Then we were going to drive all the way to New Orleans through Mobile. And so we get to almost to Mobile. This is in the 1st of July. And you got to remember there's hot and muggy. And so what happens, my air conditioner goes out on my Fairlane. So we take that, so I have to stop and get that fixed while we're in Mobile. And luckily we found someone that could fix it for us. It was out of Freon. So get in and drive in. We're going to drive all the way to New Orleans because I had a friend there and we're going to go to church with them that Sunday. I think that was a Sunday. Anyway, so we didn't have reservations, and we were off schedule by about 6 hours. So we're late getting into New Orleans, and it was probably 10, 11 o'clock. We didn't have a hotel, and everything we pulled up on was not satisfactory. Finally, we said we're going to stop at the next one no matter what. We're going to just stop and get a room for the night. And so when we stopped to, and it's At that time, they had all black motels. And this was an all black motel. We said, maybe it's not too good idea for us to stay here. And it didn't look too safe. And so so the next one, we stop at one. And the one we stop at it's not really nice at all. But the worst part about it, and Alice was not afraid of much of anything except she hated roaches. And we get into the room and the roaches, so we didn't sleep much that night. So the next day we get up and we're going through, well maybe we'd only gone through Mississippi. While we were going through Mississippi, I had left, we'd had a cooler that a family had packed up for us with lunch meats and a lot of leftovers from the reception and stuff, and eggs and stuff, so we could cook breakfast in the room or whatever. Anyway, we forgot it. That was the one thing we left behind. So we stopped on the Mississippi beach at Biloxi, Pascagoula, somewhere in there, and we just go into this little 7-Eleven or something, and I get a styrofoam cooler, and I fill it up with eggs and bacon and bread and sort of stuff we can make sandwiches with. And Alice was in the car, and I was so proud. Outside, I was going to hold it up, you know. Well, a styrofoam box full of drinks and food and stuff, you know. Well, the handle didn't left. The whole thing fell out, burst on the floor.
Oh man.
So one of that woman stayed with me. It was a disaster. So we go. We just go to a little sandwich shop, pick up a couple of sandwiches. We're gonna have dinner on the beach regardless. And I can't remember what happened. Somehow our sandwiches got knocked into the sand, and we had to dust the sand up. We ate them anyway. But that was, I could go on, that was our honeymoon, you might say. So we get to San Antonio eventually, and so I have to check in on July 3rd, and I'm supposed to go for full-time duty on July 5th. So I get there and they said, well, you can't stay off base. I said, why not? I said, I'm married. Got my, I can't remember if I had my marriage certificate or not, but we needed something we didn't have. And so we had to get that. I forgot it. You couldn't FedEx it, or it was telegraph. We had to get a telegraph affidavit or something showing that we were married so we could live off base. Also, that was the weekend we got down to less than $1 in cash because of the expenses we had coming from Dothan. Literally, we had, I think, maybe 70 cents. But because it was the 4th of July, the checks had come early. And so I had money. But just stuff just happens in your life that you don't control, but you get through it. And so I'll stop here. This is beginning my Army career, and we'll pick up on that later.
Well, all right. Thank you,
Is
Big
that
Sean.
too detailed?
It's
You can edit a bunch of stuff, right?
It's however you want to tell it.